Hello and welcome back to Mountaintop Media. I am Leslie and I am here today with one of my favorite, not hosts, guests. Guest is the right word. Sam Anthony with YourNews.com. And Sam has been on this show 2, 3 times maybe, and he just keeps growing and growing. So the fun part is watching you from the infancy of yournews.com to now. You just showed me the view count and you guys are growing. So welcome back and let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Hey, Leslie, good. Thank you for having me back on your show, man. I appreciate it. Good to see you.
You too. So tell us first, for those who haven't seen, I would hope that all of my viewers by now know what your news is. But for those who maybe don't or have forgotten or got busy, tell us how this offsets mainstream media and how this is the future of information for local and national news. You cover everything.
We cover everything, and so the legacy media is an antiquated product. So what you're really seeing is no different than what the people saw that they had the horse and buggy or the telegraph. There's always a product that replaces something else. So as we were talking earlier, going back to 1990, you had 4 networks to watch. Those are your only choices: Fox, CNN, ABC, and NBC. And today, with all the different platforms, with TikTok, with Instagram, with YouTube, there's literally hundreds of millions of options. And so there's people that are coming up that are making millions of dollars on YouTube, and people gravitate to the content that's relevant to them. So everything is moving to platforms, and what we're witnessing right now is the demise of the legacy media. And what's going to replace it for local news is going to be a platform, but not like Instagram or YouTube. I know Musk always talks about X being the future of everything, but it's not. You need a hyper local news platform. So what we are is, think of the local newspaper in every city in America with USA Today wrapped around it. So we can distribute news to a city, a county, a market, state, regional, or national. Somebody's Little League game is sports news for a city. The high school football game is sports news for the market. And the Monday Night Football game is national news and sports. So we can distribute that information based on geographical relevance. Every single newspaper or media company out there are aggregators, Leslie, meaning people that have news will send a press release to the media in that market. So in your market, whoever the radio, TV, and print are, that press release goes to them. Somebody in Miami, it's the Cancer Society or some nonprofits having an event, they send it to the media in Miami. It's fragmented. News organizations aggregate that information, and then they decide what they're going to air or publish. What we are is an aggregator of the identical content. We just have the ability to print it all because there's no cost, and we can organize it by subject and geography. In addition, I was telling you, there's between the student journalists on LinkedIn and the freelance journalists on LinkedIn, there's 700 people that are out of work. They can't get jobs. So everything is going to monetization. And YouTube has a monetization model. So does Rumble. So does TikTok. So does Instagram. So does Facebook. So they all have monetization models. And the marketplace decides who's going to make it or what kind of content they like. And as we were discussing, I don't think the old guard is going to make it with new media. I think it's going to be a whole different set of people that are going to be reporting news. But our monetization model monetizes local news reporters where they can submit their work freely without censorship, and they can actually get paid for it. And here's the key: what we do is completely decentralize the news business, and we democratize who gets to say it.
And I love that. I love the other thing is the platforms are inconsistent, right? And especially now we have SB 771, I believe it is. I'd have to look. But that is a bill here in California that's going to affect the entire nation, because what they're doing is they're saying anything that's deemed hate speech or anything that's deemed as provoking, right? So saying they tried to shut down a video that I did about Gavin Newsom signing into law bills that are harmful toward children, right? And all these platforms shut it down. They said your video is, goes against our community standards. I took the quiz that said I understood their community standards. I said, it doesn't go against your community standards. Put my video back up. I had to fight them, got it back up. In the meantime, somebody who screen recorded the video shared it on X and it got 750,000 views. Well, it was a screen recording of a video I did that somebody on X got all of those views and counts. Granted, I personally don't care that I didn't get over 500,000 views that I got monetized for because, that's not the point of what I do. Over 750,000 people saw my message, and that's what I care about, right? So it got out there. But those platforms are inconsistent. You're not going to deplatform somebody because, California is planning to fine $500,000 to any platform that is based out of California that allows somebody to say something like, let's all go to the Capitol and demand better of our legislators because they say I'm trying to provoke a riot or I'm trying to, cause some sort of disruptive behavior. Yeah, I can burn down a city in Portland and they're not going to say anything about it, right?
No, you're right. So in our case, I mean, we're not headquartered in California, but it really, if you do something illegal, we need to take it down. But if you're expressing your right to free speech, there's nothing wrong with that. And I couldn't. I mean, look, they're doing it in England. All right, I watched a video of some woman who, what did she call her husband, or her boyfriend? Her boyfriend beat her up. She texted him that he was a faggot. Did you see the police
No,
came in and arrested her? Huh?
no, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, so came in and arrested her. She was in the shower naked. They came in the bathroom and took her out of the shower. Didn't leave the room, and they arrested her for using the word faggot. I mean, that's how crazy that place has gotten.
That's insane. In Canada is just as bad. Like Canada's having the same types of situations. They had a pastor, I was looking this morning, that actually it might have been on YourNews. I was scrolling. There was a pastor that refused to apologize they wanted him to issue a public apology for his religious viewpoints, and he wouldn't do it. So they were arresting him. And it's insane, right? Like there is no religious freedom in these countries. There is no First Amendment right to free speech in these countries. And you have a group of people here in America who have an ideology and a philosophy of wokeism. That's what it is, right? It is they've taken this ideology and they want to push it so that we lose all of those same rights. Because if it's something that aligns with them, then sure, you can scream it from a rooftop. But if it's not, then they're going to censor it. Well, once you start censoring free speech, whether it's through that ideology or even our side trying to censor free speech, it becomes a problem because everybody loses their rights. And so it doesn't matter who's doing it, it's wrong. And that's where we become a country like England, a country like Canada. And, we're under tyrannical rule. And though, I have a sweatshirt that says those who sacrifice their rights for safety deserve neither, right? And that it goes for convenience, it goes for ease, it goes for laziness. If you're sacrificing your rights so that your life is easier, you don't deserve any of it. That's just,
Listen, I completely agree. I mean, without free speech, we're all doomed. So, in our case, we will continue to keep this free speech. We won't censor anybody unless they're doing something illegal, right? So I could completely disagree with your opinion, and we're still going to publish it. And by the way, we don't have a lot of liberals on the site, and it's not because they're not invited. It's because they don't want their content around content that makes sense. That truly, that what I just said is accurate. So we've been getting them on because I want both sides to be heard. I think in order to have any kind of discussion, you can't just sit in you can't have the same message, over and over again. You
right.
need to
You
have
can't live in your echo chamber.
Exactly. You need different sides. So I'm looking for them, and we do get them now, but they're few and far between. I mean, some of the stuff is a little cocoa puffs for me, but it still gets published. It will. This platform will remain a free speech platform. That is my only concern. And part of what we're doing now is as we're building this, I don't want to, we're raising capital, so I don't want dilution to get to the point where somebody could actually take it over. But we've kind of figured that out. So ultimately, I don't want the culture change in something like this. And you know what? Ultimately, we will become what we do will become the next mainstream media. It'll be a hyper local news platform where the public is allowed to interact and share in the narrative, which is what they want. And it'll have a monetization for news reporters where they can submit their news freely without censorship and get paid for it in a self-service ad platform where Joe's Pizza could buy an ad targeted to one zip code. That's where everything's headed.
Right.
This will become the next mainstream media. We just want to make sure that it will always be a free speech platform.
And, that's perfect. Going back to, needing both sides, I say all the time, we need both sides. I was raised on Rush Limbaugh. I was raised in the church. I have very ingrained conservative values, but I need somebody who wants to fight to save the sea turtles because I like plastic straws, right? Like, I think those reusable straws are disgusting. I don't know what's in there after 3 days of using it, right? So I throw my straw away and get a new one. And so I need somebody who's going to balance that out, right? If all of my, right-wing militia friends ran the entire country, we'd have no social services for a woman whose husband died tragically, or for somebody who, I have a friend right now, she had to turn her husband in for, some illegal acts. And now she found herself being a single mom, having to take on the burden of all of the duties and bringing home the bread and everything else. If my people and only my people ran everything, there would be no place for her to go and get the help she needed, right? And so it takes both sides. It takes people who say, we have to have these programs. And then it takes the people that say, if we're going to offer these programs, we need to regulate them, right? And so it takes balance. And I love that you have a platform that's open to everybody. And I super love that you have a platform that is about everything. It's not just politics. You can go there, you can get your sports, you can get your entertainment, you can get the whole gamut, right? And you can interact. It goes back to our founding fathers. Our founding fathers designed a country that is by the people, for the people, and of the people. And they said the same thing about the press. They said the press is everyone, right? You and I are the press. We're the people on the ground who experience it. And on your platform, they get a say. They get to say, I went to this event. This is what happened. Tell me what you thought, right? And there's that engagement piece. And I love that. Our founding fathers set up something that can withstand the times as long as we can keep it, right?
Yes, that I agree with. And we were talking earlier off camera, and it's kind of a shame that we've gotten to where we're at today. But obviously, somebody took their eye off the ball. Talking about the mainstream media and how corrupt they are. Well, it all stems from politics, and from these politicians that really just figured out a way to line their own pockets, and now that's become a way of life for them. And I look at politics as a dirty word, simply because if somebody wants to get into politics, they all go in trying to make change and do better for people, but somehow it just seems like nothing ever gets better. And the only way you could do it is from the top down. I mean, look at the stuff that Trump has been fighting. All these different states. I mean, your state, it's one of the worst. Minneapolis or Minnesota, one of the worst. Chicago, one of the worst. And these governors are hell bent on making sure that they completely destroy their states. It just blows me away. They don't want to take these criminals out. They want to give them money. They want to give them all these SNAP benefits, all these different benefits from the taxpayer money. So and then on top of it, they got the media backing them. So, they've been able to funnel money and steal it through legal, how do I put it? It's legal, not extortion, but, money laundering,
Yep.
legal money laundering. These NGOs that they set up these guys are lawyers. They said, well, if we do this, we're going to jail. But if you give the money to an NGO that is run by a friend of ours, and you do a little wink where you tell them you're going to move most of the money back over to the DNC, well, we don't get in trouble for that. Neither do they. That's just their choice. So
Right.
it's nuts how they've been stealing money legally, and you can't lock them up. So, and then on top of it, they got the media who's backing them. And why do you think that is? It's because they're on their payroll. It has to. Well, we already know they were, because we already know the billions that were gotten for being received from the NGOs.
Right. Well,
So
and President Kennedy, he had said the press is there to hold him accountable. The press is there to get his message out to the public and to expose the things that he's doing. He wanted the press to kind of work as a balance with him, to you guys are there to get the word out to the masses, but also hold me accountable for the things that I'm doing, right? And we've had so long since him, so many presidents who have found a way to politically use and own the media and control the narrative, right? The media has been able to tell us for the last, 20, 30 years how to vote, what to do. Anything that doesn't go with that narrative, they shut it down. It's owned by big pharma. It's owned by the politicians. It's owned by, and, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, they own everything, right? And so they have found a way to control what the narrative is, what the public finds out. And that's not what it was intended to be. And now we have all these other platforms. You have information at your fingertips. You have people who, oh, it's on the internet, so it must be true, and believe it. But, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I like her. She's making some interesting choices. Not everybody's perfect, but she's going out and she's speaking out against all this stuff. And then people go on and they're like, don't you own stock in like 2 big pharmaceutical companies? And it's like, okay, now she gets to be held accountable, right? You can't get up there and be like, oh, well, I'm better than you for this reason, and this reason. And I'm speaking out against this, but then I own stock in the other side. You're no better than, who is it that everybody always says, Switzerland, that plays both sides, How are you any better? And same goes for Trump, I think he's one of the best presidents we've ever had. I think he's doing huge things. He's uncovering huge things. But when he does something stupid, the press should be covering it. We should be calling him out. Why is Amazon pouring money into your big ballroom? Do we want to become beholden to Amazon? No, I think they already own enough, right? So I think that we as the people should be able to hold government accountable, and having a truly free speech platform and a truly free press where we can do that is amazing. And that's something that we need more of, not less.
yeah, Leslie, no question about it. So here's the thing. Right now you have mainstream media, which does reach a large portion of the older audience. And the average age of people watching cable news, I believe, is roughly 72 or 73 years old. It's up there, right? And, the average person lives to, I think women live to 80, men live to 76 or 7 or whatever. So, you could just say 80 for all practical purposes. So the point is that that's not going to last much longer.
Right.
And all that stuff eventually is going to be gone. And I actually think it's going to be good, because those platforms, which had massive reach but were for the most part all liberal, nobody's going to have to hear it anymore. And I don't watch it, other than I have to see some clips because I'm on a lot of shows from time to
Right.
time, so you have to kind of be updated with everything that's going on, especially being in the news business. But it's all negative. I really don't want to hear it, and it's all for the most part lies. I mean, you could just see they're pushing one agenda. So look at, now they're talking about Trump being ill. Meanwhile, the guy's doing like 6 interviews a day. Okay, we didn't see Joe Biden the whole time he was in office. 4 years, we
Mm-hmm.
had no idea where he was, unless he was falling down somewhere, right? They show these clips, but they obviously are trying to destroy Trump or the Republican Party because they're pushing an agenda. All that stuff's going to be gone.
Right.
And the real big voices that are going to come out of this are going to be new people, but I really don't see, I call them the idiots. The people that, these are the climate change people, all that stuff that really just have no bearing on or no clue as to what's really happening. Those people are their audience will shrink, but the people that they gravitate to will not really have big audiences because I really don't believe they represent. I don't believe we're a divided country. I believe we're 90-10. On a worst case scenario, 80-20. You can't tell me there's that many stupid people out
Right.
there. You can't. So I think that once the mainstream media is gone because they had a lock on it, the next mainstream media will be us, will be your news. Okay, what we do. But more importantly, all those big names will gravitate to us for distribution and
Right.
monetization. And all those people will be common sense people. Okay. It doesn't matter. You could have common sense and still think that maybe, bringing in, bringing in not illegals, but, what do they call it? When you come across the border, right? You do
Immigration.
it
Yeah.
legally. Yeah, immigration, you do it legally, but maybe somebody may have a different viewpoint on how it needs to get done, but not this extreme left, which is just nuts. Like bring them all. Oh, he's a murderer. Oh no, he doesn't get to go to jail because he didn't really know any better. He comes from Africa where they just kill people to get their food, so he doesn't know any better.
Right. Well,
Nuts.
and I think you're right. I think the problem with our society is apathy, right? Apathy is causing our society to collapse because what's happening is you have the vast majority of us that probably see common sense and logic and
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, we have more in common than we do apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's more that we agree on than we fight about. But mainstream media, shows like The View, have zero purpose except for to cause division, create chaos, create. And so now things like common sense are bad words because this extreme left has said, oh, those are Trump's speaking points. If you talk about common sense, you must be a red hat wearing idiot. Well, no, if you're common sense, that's common sense. You make sense. What you're doing is normal, right? But the mainstream media is trying to make it not normal, right? And the other thing is, if you are somebody who's sitting at home on your couch all day and you're watching the news and you're probably a pretty negative person because there is doom and gloom and there's no hope, right? And as you're watching like negative story after negative story after negative story, the next thing that comes on is a negative story where a platform like yours, you're like, okay, I've seen enough dismay. Let me go watch a kid win, the Child's World Series, or let me, go look at a pony show, or, you can scroll on to something that is positive and uplifting. And, you know, so I think that the days of being told what to think and how to think are over. And I think you're right. Once this becomes the norm and we check out of, I can't tell you how many of my grandparents and my grandparents' friends will call and say, and even occasionally my parents, they'll be like, you were on the news last night. And I'm like, probably. I didn't watch it. I don't watch it, but I've made friends with our local news agencies because when there's a local board meeting or city council meeting, whatever it is, and there's this narrative that's going to get out to the public that is negative or false or whatever, I want to get up and have a good prepared speech that gives facts and that offsets the regular narrative that these people are trying to push so that the people who are just buying whatever mainstream media tells them will get some facts, right? So every time somebody says, oh, I saw you on ABC last night, I'm like, good. Maybe you actually have a clue about what happened in the meeting, not just, the divisive story that normally gets sold and pushed out there.
By the way, you live in a state that's blue, but I believe in the market you're in, isn't it mostly red
Yeah,
or no?
it used to be like 80%. Now it's like 50%, 60%, and then the independent party has grown to like 20, and then it's still only like 30% extreme left. So yeah, we're in a pretty conservative market. And the problem, going back to apathy is I think we're even more conservative than that. But we have this whole group of people who are just asleep at the wheel. They're like, oh, God puts our leaders into power, and he's got a plan, and I don't have a say, and voting doesn't matter. And, we've got this entire group of people who are the common sense people. Somebody was telling me the other day that 60% of gun owners don't vote. Why would 60% of gun owners in California not vote? They're constantly trying to take away your gun rights. Well, because they either think that voting doesn't matter in the state of California because it's going to go blue either way, or their pastor is telling them God's in control and voting is racist and, whatever the thing is that's happening now. And, we need people who are going to be real leaders to stand up in front of congregations, to stand up in front of the community. I try to do it with the stories we put out. You cannot make positive change if you don't get involved. And if all you do is vote, that's one step. If you go and get involved and run for office, that's even better. If you go and get involved by reading the agenda and knowing what's happening, that's great. Tell 5 friends, just somebody care about what's going on, because when you're asleep at the wheel, they take over and, your entire livelihood is hijacked. And that's how we get something like COVID to happen again. And
Yes.
people don't realize they've tried to ramp up a couple other, pandemic type situations. And if we continue to have this apathetic society that's like, well, it's mean, or, ooh, it's racist to get involved. No, like those are fear-mongering tactics. Those are things to keep us divided and asleep and lazy. And, that's when we're going to get to that point where it's, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Well, will you be? No, you're going to have this manufactured happiness.
Leslie, I agree with you. I think you need to be out there voting. You need to be proactive. The issue that you face, like in states like California or Chicago, is your vote really doesn't matter, because all they'll do is if everybody voted for a conservative, they would just need to bring in more trucks, right? To be able to beat the amount of, even if it meant tripling the population to be able to beat the amount of votes. I mean, because you're dealing with criminal cartel, criminal organizations, and they don't want to give up power. And that's how I see it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't vote. You definitely should vote. But, they're not working on your behalf. These people just want power. That's all
Right.
they want. And I live in a state that is not like that at all. I'm in South Florida, and for the most part, I mean, this place is, as red as can be. And, everybody around me, I mean, it's very hard to find liberals. It really is, because you don't find that many stupid people. And it's just how it works. And for every 20 conservatives, there might be a half a liberal, right? I mean, there's just not that many, and it's kind of nice. So I don't really, when I talk to friends of mine in Chicago and they can't wear a MAGA hat, I'm like, what? You can't wear a MAGA? Oh no, you'll get beaten up for it. I can't even believe that would happen.
Right. Well, and, just to kind of push back a little on the your vote doesn't matter. Yeah, you're right. If they have a candidate that they want in, they'll bring in truckloads, they'll do whatever. All of that's already under investigation, and hopefully it's cleaned up. I'd love to see federalized elections to save places like California come 2026. But your vote 100% does matter, because what they're not going to bus in mass ballots over is your local school board, your city council, your board of supervisors, right? You might have 90 billion ballots brought in that say, we want Gavin Newsom versus, whoever we had run against him last time, Brian Daly or whoever, right? So they might be padding the votes for that, but they're not worried about who is your local assembly person, who is your local city council member, your school board, and that's why it is so, so, so important to look at those down ballot races, because some of those are decided by 5 votes. Some of those are decided by 40 votes. Some of those are decided by 100 votes. And if we get 600 people from a church to come and vote their conscience, I'm not even telling you how to vote. Come do your research on the candidates and vote your conscience, right? We're going to see things change in states like California because every school board will be taken over by common sense. Every city council will be taken over by common sense. Every board of supervisors or county commissioners, I think some states call them, will be taken over by common sense. And then what's going to happen is when the people that they did ship in these ballots for try to do something to the mass of the population will be pushing back at the local level. And, we are doing that in Shasta County. We've got 2 laws that I know off the top of my head. We canceled the Dominion voting machines and tried to do paper ballots for elections. The state came back and said, nope, sorry, you're not allowed to hand count your election. You must use a machine. Here's the 3 that are approved. Okay, tell me there's corruption without telling me there's corruption if you're not going to allow us to do what we did for 210 out of the 250 years we've been a country, right? We always had all the numbers by election night. You go to bed, you know who's the president. Now that we've given it to machines, we don't find out for 2 months, right? So make that make sense, right? But the other thing is, you're going to see a change in your local control because we put forward a policy that says the schools must tell parents what's going on with their kids. If your kid is socially or physically transitioning on campus, you are to be informed about it. And the state came back and said, nope. In fact, we're going to make a law that says that you don't have to tell the parents anything. Well, I'm one of the plaintiffs on the lawsuit against that because that is not cool. Parents who are involved, those kids are more successful in life. Are there bad parents? Sure. Are there bad cops? Sure. Are there bad politicians? Absolutely, right? There's bad people in every sector of life, but the majority of parents know and want what's best for their kid. And it is their responsibility, it is their God-given right, and it is protected by the 14th Amendment. So when states do something tyrannical, if we have every single school board standing up against them, they're not going to continue to try to push that.
Well, first of all, you're absolutely correct. And by the way, have you ever spoke with Steve Stern before?
Yes.
Precinct strategy, yeah, because what you're describing is exactly what he said. All those local school board meetings, city council meeting, all that stuff. You want to actually have control over stuff like that. So you need to be there. So I definitely do agree with you. It's just the shame that you're competing against an organization that wants machines in place that they can alter the votes based on how they need it. And it's amazing how dealing with ballots and using the archaic methods that were used for years, you got the end result after midnight that day. But now it takes a month or 2 because now that they know what the result is, they can't put it out. Now they have to bring in more ballots and figure out a way to sneak them in to change the result. That's the answer to what the question you asked. To explain that to me, I just did.
Yeah. And it's insane. And what we're living in, I mean, the movie Idiocracy, I was dating somebody last summer and he's like, your job sounds like that movie. And I was like, what are you talking about? I had never seen it. And so we sat down and we watched it. I was like, oh my goodness, this is what we're living in, right? Like you've got the lawyer and the doctor that's like, push the button, your head feels funny, and stick these probes wherever. And these machines are going to tell us what's wrong with you. Like we have become a society that is just so dumbed down and lazy that we don't care to protect our rights. We don't care to protect our individual freedoms and everything that makes us the greatest country in the world. And, mainstream media, the legacy media, all of that has contributed. And they've built the format that says, We have the most money. Therefore, we are the authority on the matter. And that has sank into every step of our lives. You have politicians now that are running, and now both parties are guilty of doing it, right? It used to be the Democrats, they all, whether they believed in it or not, they got behind the candidate with the most money and they all pushed it, whether they agreed with them. And the Republicans ran 7 different people, divided ourselves because we all ran on, who we agreed with, who we aligned with. We all had this moral compass. Well, now you're seeing the Republican Party say, well, who has the most money? We're throwing all of our integrity out and we're becoming everything that we've been fighting against when we do that, right? So our candidates should be, like we said at the very beginning of the show, by the people, for the people, of the people. They should be everyday citizens who are attainable figures. That's why Trump is so unstoppable. He's just some guy that they used to write rap songs about, right? He's just some business owner that likes to be on the golf course. He's not a politician. Now, I would argue some of the choices he's been making, he's becoming a politician. But the reason he became who he is and what he is now is because he will push back. When something doesn't make sense, it's not common sense. He's like, no, there's 2 genders. It's very easy. God made boy, God made girl, But, we're a free country. So if you choose as an adult to go do whatever, as long as you're not asking us to pay for it, sure, go become a boy, go become a girl, go become a toaster, I don't care what you want to be, right? We live in a free country. So if I truly believe in a free country, I can't tell you what you can and cannot do, as long as you're not asking me to pay for it. But when you're doing it to our kids, we have a problem, right? Then I will tell you that's not going to fly. It's not going to happen. And the pendulum has swung so far one way, we're coming back to common sense. And somebody like Trump can't be bought on that issue. He's saying, we will protect girls in girls' spaces. We will protect children from mutilation. Those are the things that no matter what dumb political choice he's making, I'm going to stand behind him because he's protecting what matters. And that's our children and the future of our country. And other politicians aren't doing that. So when our party is becoming who has the most money, I don't care how much money they have. Are they going to protect kids from human trafficking? Are they going to protect kids from mutilation? Are they going to protect our kids from indoctrination in the schools? That's what I want to know, right? And so we have the legacy media who set up this model of money makes the world go round. Whoever has the money makes the rules, right? I think even Disney said that, I have money, so I get to make the rules. That was a Mary Poppins song or something, right? Mr. Banks. And that's not real. That's not what it might be real for countries that are failing, like England and Canada, right? But it's not real here. We have the best form of government if we can keep it. And we're at the point that, Ronald Reagan was warning us about. We're maybe one generation from losing our country if we don't start standing up. So I love that you have a platform that gives everybody the freedom to report fairly accurately their own input and not have BlackRock and Vanguard State Street tell you, you're going to turn left because I said turn left, and you're going to buy this because I said buy this. You have people that are like, I bought this and I like it better because it makes me feel good, right? I love it.
Yeah. And so, first of all, I agree with everything you said. I think it's a shame we got here. I have my ideas on solving the problem, but at the end of the day, I do think it's important that the press goes back to the people and not the institutions that are controlling everything. And the good news is that everything is actually coming our way anyway. So the legacy media is not going to survive just because it's an outdated, antiquated product, and because of the internet and the ability to have hundreds of millions of choices. All that stuff is going away because the money's going to the platform. So if you still notice, those big platforms are still owned by all the tech giants, right? So they're still in control of all that stuff. The only one that controls YourNews is me, and we're the only players in this space. So it's important that we win this game and become, the next mainstream media, because you want to keep it as a free speech platform. This is why I'm not, My background is investment banking. I worked in the brokerage industry for years. That's what I started when I was 21 years old. I worked at Lehman Brothers downtown Chicago. I'm not a big fan of anything public simply because I don't like the regulation. In this case with our company, I believe that if you're going to be a news organization that is by the the people should own the product and not the institutional money. So that is why I believe this should be owned by the public. And that's why we'll end up taking this public over the next few years. Kind of like Rumble. You remember Rumble, nobody knows this, but in 2013, Rumble started and they went up against YouTube, which you can't win. And the only reason anybody ever heard of them was in 2020 when YouTube kicked off a handful of people and Rumble filled that void. And now Rumble's got a $2.5–3 billion market cap within 3 years, 4 years. So it's all based on your content creators and how many you have. So the pool of content creators we have is massive and we onboard them daily. So here's what I think. I'm for your audience, if there's anybody that's interested in becoming a news reporter in the local community, it's very simple to do. All you would do is go to YourNews.com. And do you want me to Leslie to share the screen and show people or no?
Yeah, you can. I have it up on my side, but if you share your screen, it won't cut out.
I'll do it real quick. So when you log into YourNews.com, is it showing?
Yes.
Do you see it? Okay, so it's going to take you to your city. So it'll look like this. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page as far as you can go, you're going to see something down here. And I don't know if you could see it, but I think I can make it bigger. It says become a citizen journalist. So if you click this, there's an application. You can watch a couple videos, and right here's an application people fill out. That comes into us. Once we approve it, you get activated and you'll get an email with instructions on how to use your dashboard. It is simple to do. We probably bring in a couple thousand articles a day. Like I said, last month, we had almost 1.4 million readers that came to the site. And then for those people that are interested, we're doing a private placement, which is we're selling stock before we go public, kind of like Facebook and Uber and Amazon did before they went public. There's an invest button down here. When you click it, it will take you to a different page. Did it change for you? I think it did, right?
Yep.
So this is the Nico Ventures is the holding company. It's like News Corp owns Fox News, but nobody calls Fox News News Corp. But News Corp owns a lot of different companies. Nico Ventures is the holding company. And the plan behind that is I want to make a bunch of different acquisitions and verticals. But this is where you can, there's a video on this page. You could listen, you'll read about what we're doing, and it'll show you the amount of capital that we've currently raised. This is a little over $1 million offering. We're just under half of it. And if somebody wants to make an investment, they could click here and you could invest as little as $200 and anywhere in between. The whole purpose of this is it's not going to institutions, Leslie. It's going to we the people.
Right.
So I want the people to own this, not the BlackRock and the Vanguards. This round will be simply, the individuals. The next round will be individuals. The one after that will be much larger, but it's going to be at a different value. So you'll have once you're going public, you'll have institutional money come into that because you might raise 50 or $100 million. And for me to do that on a platform like this, it would take 200 years to get that done. But let me go back to you here. So if anybody interested in that, if somebody wants to have a conversation with me, you can send me an email, sam@yournews.com. We want content creators, advertisers, and investors, and we have plenty of traffic, and it just keeps growing. And there's no shortage of people that are out of work in the media industry. It's like, as I tell people, you're either going to go to do this on a platform or you're going to have to pick a different occupation. That's where it's all going.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I always love having you. I feel like I learn so much every time, and then I get reinvigorated to do more and be involved. And I always kind of feel like the sense of, man, why didn't I do that sooner? Why haven't I been on top of that? So I appreciate it. I will end with, I went to a town hall meeting last night, in a very small mountain community. And they were talking about, and one of their biggest complaints was their lack of news availability, right? They're getting all of their news from Facebook. And one of them joked, don't die on a Tuesday because nobody will find out about it until like next month's newspaper, right? And that is sad to live in this, media desert where nobody sees, knows, or hears about you. And so my message to them, and I'll share this in their community group, is get involved, become a Your News citizen journalist, and start reporting on what's going on in your small community and start creating this media network within your community so that people know what's going on. And, somebody wins an award, you make a post about it. Somebody, has a big event, you make a post about it. Somebody buys a building that's been shut down for 20 years, you make a post about it, right? Like, start creating the news that you want and do it on this platform where you're going to have free speech forever. I love it.
Yeah. And by the way, let me add to that. So some people don't do it because they say they're not a writer. Like, I am not a great writer. But if you use like Chat GPT or Grok or any of these artificial intelligence, people always used to tell me, oh, artificial intelligence is going to take over the news business. Well, that's impossible because it can only rewrite what some person wrote. So if nobody
Right.
wrote a story about the high school football game, then AI can't write anything about it. So you will always need boots on the ground. But what AI is it's a great tool. So what you do is if you went to a city council meeting, you take notes, okay? Things that are important that you want in the article. You plug that into ChatGPT and say, write me a news story, and here's the bullet points I want to expand upon. Write me a news story, and it will. And then once you read it, if you want to make changes, say change paragraph 3 to make it more like this. And once it's done, that's your article, and you
Right.
submit it.
And it
It's
doesn't take
easy.
very long. When I first started doing this, I would make a post and I'd have a meme or whatever, and then I'd do a write up. And it was funny. My boss actually came to me one day and he goes, "You're not very good at writing things. Like, we got to figure that out. You're just the way you word it. I write like I talk, right? And I talk sometimes like a 90s Valley girl. And so when you write like you talk, sometimes it doesn't come across, or, the written word is hard, especially, you're texting people and they're like, why are you mad at me? Well, I'm not mad at you, but it's open to interpretation of how they read it, right? So when you write like you talk, sometimes your article is going to come off putting because you wrote it with your passion behind it, but they're reading it with their mindset, right? So it doesn't communicate well. That's why I prefer video news, video content, because people see my expression and they see the feeling and and so your platform allows you to put video content. But if you were to do the write up and the news story to go along with it, which I got to get better about doing, and I'm trying to, I put it into Grok. I say, this is what I have to say. These are the notes that I took. I mean, this is my notebook that I take to every meeting and I take a bajillion notes, right? And so I put it into Grok and I say, okay, write an article. And then I go back and I edit it and change it. But when I do something like that, I have to use AI because I'm a mess when I write.
Leslie, you need to start reporting that on your news. I mean, I told you earlier, you're the perfect citizen journalist. I mean, none of the old guard is going to survive. You heard Laura Logan say it. I've been saying it forever. I'm actually the guy that's bringing them all on. I see it all. All the old guard wants the old way, and that ship has sailed. It's gone. The new way is the YouTube model of monetization, where the cream rises to the top. If you want to make a lot of money, you're going to have to put out better content that attracts a bigger audience, right? Because the advertisers are only going to pay based on views. That's how the new world of advertising works. It's not
Mhm.
like, well, you spend $500 on this display ad, and we have no idea how many people saw that ad. Now they know exactly how many people saw it. So you have to. So there's performance, not issues, but it's everything on platforms is performance. Well, since it's performance for the platform, it's going to be performance for the content creators too. Just makes logical sense, right?
Yeah.
And so why would, if one guy, Leslie, if you had 10,000 views and you got paid X, and somebody had 500 views and they got paid based on their 500 views, well, they're going to be jealous that you got 10,000, but you shouldn't have to share the money with them. It's not fair.
Right.
That's the whole point, right? That's the whole point. So it's the cream's going to rise to the top. The marketplace is going to decide what content they like, and you're just like anything else. You're going to have the 80-20 rule. That's how it's going to work. And some content creators will stay on just because they enjoy it, even though not a lot of people read their stuff. But you're going to have some people that are going to attract big audiences, and they're going to be people that maybe nobody ever heard of. I mean, look at the people on YouTube. There's a guy on YouTube. I watch his thing. He does golf videos and just tips. How to hit a better drive or putt better, whatever. This guy's got 3 million people that watch his stuff. I mean, that's enormous, right? Especially for golf, just golf. So
Yeah.
anyway, this is where the whole world's headed. I have to tell you, I'm very optimistic because we're so close to the legacy media's demise that you ever heard that expression, information is power? Well, he who controls all the information has all the power. Well, my interest is not in controlling the information, but controlling the distribution part of it so that we can get some common sense back into this country, right? So, we're putting this in the hands of the people, not in the hands of BlackRock and Vanguard.
And that is the best news all day. So
Yes.
go to yournews.com, sign up to be a citizen journalist, or go to yournews.com and just start getting your news from a free speech platform that is not owned by BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, all the people who own everything and tell you you will own nothing and you will like it, because that is not reality. We live in the very free and amazing country of the United States, and we are going to keep it that way or fight like hell trying. So thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure. I enjoy it every time. And go check out Sam at yournews.com.
Thank you, Leslie. Great. Thank you for having me. Good to see you again.